Our American Lands presents The Future is Now. If you want this to survive, you'd better know who your enemy is. Vote no on Colorado 82 and 98. Colorado has two proposed ballot initiatives proceeding through the petitioning process. If validated, they will both appear on the November 2026 ballot, number 82 and 98. Should either or both initiatives pass, Colorado will be subject to an appointed commission that has full authority to limit or end access to public ground and your private property. Here is why you must vote no on both 82 and 98. Nobody in Colorado is safe from the WECC if 82 or 98 pass. Even hiking access could be closed. Hunting banned. Fishing off limits. Four-wheeling roads closed. Rafting disturbs wildlife. Rock climbing no access. If the Rewilders get their way, even skiing Colorado could be a thing of the past. The Colorado Wolf Introduction Program is only part of the problem. Many issues we are facing today began with the United Nations and George H.W. Bush with the introduction of Agenda 21.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
The United Nations Earth Summit in 1992. These videos explain the basics of 30 by 30 and Agenda 21.
This is a plan by the U.S. government to take 30% of America's land completely out of production by the year 2030. This would mean that 30% of the land in this country will be placed into federal conservation, and it would essentially be idled. There will be no grazing, no farming, no drilling, no fishing, no developing, basically just no human activity at all. And while the current aim is to take 30% of America's land by the year 2030, once that's actually achieved, the next step will be to take 50% of America's land by the year 2050.
Anyway, this is the wish list in documents for Agenda 21 operating through the United Nations. An end to national sovereignty, all justified by saving the world, by the way. An end to national sovereignty. State planning and management of all land resources, ecosystems, deserts, forests, mountains, oceans and fresh water. Agriculture, rural development, biotechnology and ensuring equity equals slavery. The state is to define the role of business and financial resources. Abolition of private property is not sustainable, they say. Here we go again. How many times has this come up? Restructuring the family unit. Children to be raised by the state. People told, this is what Aldous Huxley said in Brave New World, people told what their job will be, major restrictions on movement, creation of human settlement zones, I'll get to them in a minute, mass resettlement as people are forced to vacate land where they live for reasons I'm coming to, dumbing down education, achieved a long time ago, mass global depopulation in pursuit of all of the above. And what they're doing to hide it is they're setting Agenda 21 organizations up in all local communities all over the world, America, Britain, all over the place, and they're giving the impression that each of these is basically an independent local community initiative when it's all being orchestrated through this organization, through the United Nations, called Local Governments for Sustainability.
It is all about control of our American lands and the world. Know your enemy. These protests are designed to make you believe they have a huge base of support. Not so much. In fact, many are paid to be as disruptive as possible. These elected quote-unquote representatives are the globalist foot soldiers of Colorado, Bennett Hickenlooper and Herd the Rhino. This puppet of globalists will sign anything his masters say to. These are the known puppet masters, Fink, Schwab, and Soros. This is Nicole Rosemarino, Rewilding zealot. She's the new director of the Colorado Land Board. This is activist Glenn Parton. He wants to take away your allotments, private and public property, and will give it to the wolves.
I've come to the conclusion that the only real way to solve the wolf-livestock conflict is for the federal government to buy out ranches and private property holdings in the most remote regions of the Rocky Mountains, so wolves can live in peace and privacy. The federal buyout should be voluntary to begin with, based on fair market prices. A second point, for those unwilling to act in the common good, the federal government should use the right of eminent domain as authorized in the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. I would like to point out that Great Smoky Mountains National Park and Shenandoah National Park were both created through eminent domain. And without this legal action, animals would be in far, far worse shape. Today, Great Smoky National Park is the most visited park in the nation, offering great freedom and happiness to all forms of life, human and non-human. Let us uphold the U.S. Constitution in taking property with just compensation that benefits the public good. Humans in their activities have no place in the wildest parts of the Rocky Mountains. Eminent domain has been used throughout our history to destroy nature. So we need to overcome this double standard by using it to heal nature. Third point, all public lands should be designated wilderness, terminating all grazing. The last sentence, terminating all grazing and commercial uses, because this is the only way to solve the biodiversity crisis, especially for apex predators and carnivores.
Hey, good evening, Americans. This is Shad Sullivan coming to you from the headwaters of Bitter Creek, Archer County, North Texas, where July is hot. We're in the dog days of summer. It's supposed to be that way, so we're not going to complain very much. I just came back from a trip to southeast Colorado, specifically northwest Crowley County, where we have had a lot of incremental rains across the prairie. Our cattle are looking like $1 million. The wildlife is fantastic. The people are happy, so we're going to call that a blessing and a win. While I was in Colorado, I was able to speak at the Colorado Independent Cattle Growers Convention in Hugo. Now, on Friday night, Cody Jolly invited the whole organization out to his ranch south of Hugo, where he hosted 5 state legislators and other dignitaries, along with 80 members from that organization. And then Saturday morning, we went in and had the business meeting and had several speakers, to include myself and my presentation, The War on Beef, which talks about beef and liberty. It was very well received, as it always is. So I thank Colorado Independent Cattle Growers for letting me spread the message of liberty and freedom. While I was in Colorado, I kept getting a lot of messages about a video that has since gone viral of a man who is proposing solutions to the cow versus wolf introduction crisis in Colorado. He is calling it a biodiversity crisis, and he has some solutions he wants to present to the public on this issue. So I thought I better learn who this guy was. Well, his name is Glenn Parton, and he is an environmental activist from way, way back. He had a lot of good ideas, but he used words like for the common good, which is a collectivist word, which collectivism is nothing more than communism. He believes in rewilding, and he writes a lot of articles for the Rewilding Institute, and he believes that the wilderness has the intrinsic right to exist. I agree with him there. Long after him and I are gone, the wilderness and the wildlife will all still be there, and they'll have every right to be there as they do today. Now, his idea of solving this issue between the cattle rancher and the wolf in Colorado is a pretty big idea. Now, his solution is that the federal government come in and buy farms and ranches from farmers and ranchers in Colorado who are willing to sell at a fair market value. I think that sounds good. Willing to sell at a fair market value. However, when we start talking about selling land to the federal government, it turns into a constitutional crisis because the federal government is not to be buying land and taking it out of production, competing with the American citizens. Now, if that was all, that would be fine, but his solution went further. And his solution to those who are unwilling to sell to the federal government is that we use the U.S. Constitution, specifically the Fifth Amendment, to enact eminent domain upon these ranchers. So what he's saying is, if you don't sell, we're going to seize the land, and that will get rid of all the cattle, which will solve the crisis between the cattle rancher and the wolf. Pretty wild. Now, whether he knows it or not, Glenn Parton is setting the stage for something big in Colorado, and that's why I'm talking about this. He may not know what he said. It may be his belief, or he may be planted there. I don't know what the case is. Either way, he's setting the stage for what's about to happen in Colorado. That may sound conspiratorial. Just hear me out. So Glenn Parton has the solutions. Now, if you'll remember back in March, there was a ballot initiative number 82 presented to committee in Colorado called the Colorado Wildlife and Biodiversity Protection Act. Excuse me. If this ballot initiative number 82 happened to pass through committee, get on the ballot and pass, it would create the Wildlife and Ecosystem Conservation Commission, which is a commission of 9 appointed people. Now, if those 9 appointed people happen to take power in Colorado, they would be given statutory authority over conservation and wildlife biodiversity in Colorado. Now, you can go to the Colorado Legislative Council and find out what all that entails. I'm not going to get into that here, but it's pretty dang scary. Some of it is just they would be enforcing violations with strict penalties, independent oversight. They would of crimes against wildlife and conservation. They would take statutory control, perhaps, of the Colorado Parks and Wildlife. A lot of really, really dangerous and nefarious things, but that's not the most important part of this ballot initiative 82. The most important and most dangerous part of it is that the commission would be made up of 3 independent ecologists, 2 conservation biologists, 1 wildlife advocate, 1 indigenous representative, 1 environmental policy specialist, and 1 wildlife management expert. You know what it didn't involve? Nobody that has financial ties to extractive industries such as logging, mining, farming, ranching, energy, or development may be a part of that appointed commission. That's the scary part. So it's self-selected, and they would take statutory control, if passed, of really Colorado's wildlife conservation and biodiversity, which includes access to public and private property. Now, if that happened to not get on the ballot, they had a backup plan. And that was ballot proposal number 98. And that is called the Colorado Working Lands and Wildlife Corridors Act. Now, while we're on the subject of wildlife corridors, we need to talk about some words. We know that sustainable development or sustainability is under the United Nations definition of production and consumption control. That's what it is. It's sustainable development. But you're going to start hearing words like science-based, rewilding, wildlife corridors. Those are the three words we have to worry about specifically in Colorado. So if the Colorado Wildlife and Biodiversity Protection Act didn't happen to get on the ballot, initiative number 98 would be presented, has been presented in committee too, and it is called the Colorado Working Lands and Wildlife Corridors Act, which is just a synopsis of the same Colorado Wildlife and Biodiversity Protection Act. It's a little more in depth. Nonetheless, it prioritizes rewilding and wildlife corridors over your private property. Now, so we have Glenn Parton, who is talking about taking private property through eminent domain by the federal government to mitigate the cow versus wolf biodiversity crisis, setting the stage for the Colorado Wildlife and Biodiversity Protection Act, which would create the Wildlife and Ecosystem Conservation Commission. If that fails, they have ballot proposal 98, which is the Colorado Working Lands, Wildlife and Wildlife Corridors Act, which is basically the same as the Wildlife and Biodiversity Protection Act. Why is that important? Because these ballot initiatives could very well get out of committee and get on a ballot. Governor Polis just signed into law House Bill 1332, which is called the State Trust Lands Conservation and Recreation Working Group. Now, what that working group does is it oversees the state land board, and it evaluates areas of revenue that could perhaps need changed or updated. So in Colorado, 2.8 million surface acres are controlled or owned by the Colorado State Land Board, along with over 4 million subsurface acres controlled or owned by the Colorado State Land Board. Now, we know every day they are partnering up with ENGOs to buy more land and take it out of production. All of these issues are about the land. I've been saying that. Now, what that would do, so the leasees or the leaseholders of these state lands pay these leases, and that money goes into a fund that services the school children of Colorado. It funds the Colorado school system. Now, they want to reorganize or reevaluate those streams of revenue. That's what this House Bill 1332 would do, is create a group that would reevaluate these streams of revenue. So is it possible or plausible that they would change these leases out from agriculture, mining, logging, or energy leases into conservation leases, into recreation leases? Very plausible. Kicking ag producers and other producers off the land. That's already in law. So we have, to review this, Glenn Parton setting the stage for rewilding and wildlife corridors and using eminent domain to kick producers off the land, willing or unwilling. We have Colorado Ballot Initiative 82, the Colorado Wildlife and Biodiversity Protection Act, which would form this commission of 9 self-selected stakeholders, sustainable development again, to pick and choose who is breaking the wildlife and biodiversity and conservation law in Colorado. They would take statutory control. Now, if that didn't go through, they have Colorado ballot proposal number 98, which is the Colorado Working Lands and Wildlife Corridors Act. And then, of course, we have Governor Polis signing into law already House Bill 1332, which is the State Trust Lands Conservation and Recreation Working Group. Now, why is that important? Because the State Land Board in June unanimously decided to hire a woman by the name of Nicole Rose Marino to head up and oversee all state lands and the State Land Board in Colorado. Now, who is Nicole Rose Marino? Well, right now, she is the governor's policy advisor for wildlife, agriculture, and rural economic development. Now, mind you, she has nothing to do with agriculture. She's an environmental activist and has been for 40 years. And she is a member of the Rewilding Institute's Rewilding Leadership Council. She is all about rewilding and a proponent of creating wildlife corridors across Colorado. She was the executive director of the Southern Plains Land Trust. We all know about that. And the creator of the Heartland Ranch Nature Preserve. She is a very dangerous person. And she believes that we should create a Serengeti, so to speak, in southern Colorado, because given that the region has seen declining human population since the Dust Bowl of the 1930s, much of the habitat remains intact and land prices are low. I've been warning about public-private partnerships for a long time, but on one end we have Mr. Glenn Parton setting the stage for rewilding and wildlife corridors through eminent domain by the federal government. We have the two ballot initiatives, number 82 and 98, in committee that would take all private property rights away from landowners in Colorado through statutory control. We have Governor Polis signing into law House Bill 1332, which would reevaluate revenue of state land boards from production to conservation. And then we have Nicole Rose Marino, who is heading up the State Land Board and is a huge proponent and pushes rewilding and wildlife corridors. You see where we're going? Do you see what these partnerships have created? So I ask you today, what is your legacy going to be? If we continue to partner with these people that are providing conservation bribery, we are going to lose access to all private property. How are we going to live without producers on the land? I have said for many, many years that all of these issues are liberty issues. And why are they liberty issues? Because access to private property upholds the rights of the individual and it provides access to natural resources. The goal is to get producers off the land so they have all access to the natural resources, both above the ground and below the ground, and even beyond that. These are all liberty issues. It's all about the land. They are coming for the land. So whether Mr. Parton knew what he was doing or not, he's setting the stage for what they want to take place in Colorado, and Miss Rose Marino is going to head it up. We have some real problems here. They need to be addressed. Whether you are a rancher, a farmer, a miner, a logger, an energy producer, a hunter, a fisherman, a small business owner, a conservationist in Colorado or beyond, we must protect our sovereignty. This is all about legacy. What is your legacy going to be? What is your family legacy going to be? What are you going to leave to the kids behind us? Are you going to leave a legacy of freedom and liberty? Of freedom making and not freedom taking? That's the question. And that's the question you have to answer. Right now is the time to get involved. Because Donald Trump is in the White House, these ENGOs and NGOs are doubling down. And they're doubling down in a big way. They have infiltrated into all of our agencies, including the USDA. They're infiltrating into our state agencies. And if we want our states, our communities, our families to be sovereign and enjoy the sweet taste of freedom, you're going to have to push back. And that's why I'm on here tonight. So I'll leave you with this. What is your legacy going to be? Is it going to be of freedom and liberty, or is it going to be tyranny disguised as conservation? That's where we're at. God bless you. God bless Colorado. God bless America.
Initiative 82 has the implementation, enforcement, as well as the designation of wildlife corridors and Keystone Species Authority. Initiative 98 has the funding in the form of a sales tax rate hike. Authority to form the WECC without passage of 82. Bottom line is, if either 82 or 98 pass, all land, public or private in Colorado, is subject to the WECC authority to take or limit access to any public land or private property based upon creation of wildlife corridors or keystone species declarations. Thanks, buddy, for that wake-up call. And thanks for watching. It is up to you. Spread the word. 82 and 98 must fail in November 2026.